You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network.
Oh,
19
yeah.
and have a great old time. But yeah, well done WWE. Solid pay-per-view. Look, we're going to skip our break and we're just going to go straight into it because we have 20 minutes. We might go into overdrive depending on what we get into. My dog is really wants a walk, so
Really
wants a walk. So,
But if you guys are watching on YouTube, make sure you click subscribe and all that stuff. I mean, if you made it this far, why not?
I tell you what, if we get 10 likes on this video, I will show my dog on camera next week.
Okay.
He's a border collie. He's pretty cool. I have two of them, Mowgli and Zeus is the small. He was a runt, so he's the smaller one, and he's very agile, so he's able to like do crazy shit. So
I saw that picture of Zeus you shared this week.
Yeah, he's gas. He's so funny.
You guys should be following us on Instagram.
Exactly. Keep up what's going on. To be fair, a lot of my Instagram is my pets because there's nothing else going on at the moment. But all right, so let's go back in the time machine, back to 2006. Yeah, back before the world fell apart. A time which I would give pretty much anything to go back to. I'm not gonna lie. If I could be stuck in a time period, it would be 2001 to 2007.
Well, maybe we could skip the end of 2001.
Yeah, well, the end of 2001, fair. But I did get to go to America in
Well, you know what?
August.
Screw it. Actually, it was actually nice to see a country all together for once.
Yeah, and look,
last time
I got to go over to America in August 2001. So
that's cool.
Disneyland was cool. Not gonna lie.
No connection, by the way, guys.
No connection. No.
That's a different podcast.
Exactly. But it was yeah, like so we're going back, and this was weird because this show was when I was just getting back into wrestling. I left wrestling almost entirely for about 3 years, 2 to 3 years. After 2002 into 2003, I was like, you know what? It's not really my thing. Just walked away from it. 2005 is when I started watching TNA. That's when I started, because it was a thing again. I was like, cool, gonna watch this. Watched ECW's One Night Stand in 2005 because I'm like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. And then I had kind of slowly seeped back in. By this time, 2006, I was already a fan again. But I was at Metallica the same night.
Really?
Yeah, because Metallica were playing in the RDS in Dublin the same night in June. It was after St. Anger, so it was around that time. And they had done, like, I got home and I'm like, oh, cool, this is on now, so watch this. And that's one of, I might complain about having to watch wrestling at 1 a.m, but sometimes it's kind of handy because you get to do stuff like that, And it was during the summer, so we were off school and stuff, so it was, a great time. But, yeah, like, that's where I was, just to set things. So what about yourself, Dave?
Well, yeah, I mean, this was our formative high school years, essentially.
Sure.
I mean, this is when I was in, I guess, grade 11 or 12, so just ending, so it was absolutely fantastic time for me, just like in life, because I was still watching with that childlike wonder. And this is also, a lot of people don't know this about me. They might think I started on WrestleView or whatever, but actually when I was in school, I started writing, and I had a column that was syndicated on about like 12 or 13 sites, small ones, just so I could work my way up to get to those other sites. And man, it was definitely a time period where I was super invested in wrestling, because I was learning about not just wrestling, but using it as a tool to learn about myself as a writer.
Right.
So I was really into the industry during this time frame, and really into understanding why do storylines exist the way that they do. So when you get the culmination of the storyline that you got for the main event of this pay-per-view, it was just everything as a fan that I needed at that time.
Yeah. No, it's funny because 2006, I finished up school in 2007.
Right,
so similar kind of experience. And I didn't get involved in the wrestling media as such until 2007, after I had gone over to the Impact Zone. That's when I kind of got into it then. And from there, what happened. But it was a very different world, totally different places. And watching it solely as a fan is something that I've kind of didn't get to do until recently. Like, we do this show as fans, which is great. And
We're the only fans that don't hate wrestling.
Exactly, that's it. The only podcast, the only podcast done by fans who don't hate wrestling, and that's
absolutely.
And having that back now, because I've watched this show many times. I've watched it about 12, 13 times, at least. And going back and watching it now through that lens is great, because I haven't been able to do that in a while.
It teleports you back in time.
It does, and it's one of those things that, like, you know, music does it as well, where it takes you right back. But this is when you capture that kind of, as you said, childlike wonder almost. It's a really cool experience. Like, having ECW back as a thing, like the build up to this was great. I remember watching the WWE Raw, SmackDown, ECW Super pre-show, which was on a Saturday before it. That was cool. Never seen that before. Hyping up for ECW, which we didn't know what it would become. Like, there was so much, like, glorious wonder and, like, excitement around this whole show. And that was kind of captured not only in, like, the most famous wrestling sign of all time, which is in bad taste now, but, again, like, riots weren't really a thing in 2006. So, you know, the threat of them was actually a thing. And obviously wrestling fans don't riot because, you know, we're wrestling fans. We just continue watching anyway. It's just what happens. But yeah, that was the biggest, the most famous wrestling sign of all time. Still is, probably. And yeah, the legacy of it is just incredible. Like, it's one of those shows that when you look back, you're saying this is a moment. RVD winning not only the WWE title, but then what will become the ECW title. Huge. Unexpected. And completely out of this world. But before we get into that, what I really like, actually, there's great. I want to give a shout out to a YouTube channel called V Infuso. Really like V Infuso. His stuff is great. He's one of the best YouTube channels you don't know about, so look him up. I think he did something on this a while ago, but check him out. Rey Mysterio versus Sabu. This was a match I remember being horribly disappointed in, but also I couldn't believe it was happening. Sabu was actually in the world title picture. You know,
this match really upset me. Well, the ending upset me.
Yeah, like, it upset me greatly as a kid, and now I'm like, this was so cheap. This is Sabu. The man glued his arm back together in a match. Like, come on, it doesn't make any sense. But the match itself was actually pretty good. I tell you, that chair shot that Ray took, holy Christ, like, completely unprotected, like, just nothing, just wham, unbelievable.
Yes, this is the pre-Benoit era, so we were taking unprotected headshots. It was
it was unbelievable. Like,
did you ever think, though, when you were watching at that time, that if you had placed yourself 14 years into the future, that you'd be going, man, chair shots to the head are a bad thing. I probably have writings where I defended them back in the day. You know what I mean? Like, I support it completely now, that they should be banned, obviously. We know about CTE, all of that. But we were naive back then. I was young back then. I'm not going to deny that I kind of admitted enjoying it, but now it shocks me when I see it.
Look, in Rome, there was this thing. The Colosseum. We are animals who like violence. Instinctively, we're going to kind of enjoy it. But our moral brain says, no, that's wrong. So that's why we don't like it, because we're older. And we're not sick in the head. Or teens who are like, yeah, violence is good. Look at the violence. It's like, no, that's horrible, you know. Step back now. Don't, you know. And that's the difference. It's because, one, we're older, and two, we have thing. But again, instinctively, there's still that kind of bloodlust in humans that are like, yeah, get him. And you're like, no, don't get him, because it's horrible. And yeah, I totally agree. But, you know, if that work hadn't been done, thankfully it was done, and we know now. But yeah, man, I'm not gonna lie, when you're watching the show and you see it, you're like, damn, that's pretty cool. But you're also just like, oh no, it's you know, it is what it is. Like, I'm glad nobody's taking unprotected chair shots now. I praise that nobody is taking unprotected chair shots now. But watching a match with unprotected chair shots used, like, not Mick Foley chair shots, which is horrific. Like, even in context, it's a horrific thing to see.
It's the worst thing.
It's the worst thing ever. It really is. Like, I'm amazed The Rock didn't go to jail. Like, to be honest with you, But
I love the way I love the way Sabu throws a chair.
Yeah,
I love when people's heads get caught between it when it hit, because then I know the chair's moving out of the way as well. I mean, it hurts. It obviously takes force, but still, it's a really cool visual.
Like Sabu's arsenal is chairs, and the way he used them like anybody else. Like I love a good Sabu match. It can't be done now. Well, one, because he's a lot older, and two, just can't do it. But you go back and watch his matches, you're going to see some really cool stuff. You know, throwing the chair, the Arabian face bomb, just unbelievable stuff. And I love him. He's great. But what I really, that spot at the end, I will have to say, even though it was disappointing, the spot where he set out the table and then did the crash on the outside did look really cool. But it was a little bit, you know, it was what it was.
It was just we wanted to go a bit longer.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, we didn't mention that just very quickly, that Panama Sunrise onto the ECW chairs. I'm calling them the ECW chairs because the Undisputed Era threw them into the match during the takeover. That was a cool spot. It was just kind of reminding me of it. But yeah, who would have thought WWE would allow a Canadian destroyer, let alone a Canadian destroyer on chairs?
Oh, when that spot happened, I was like, that is effing cool. It's unbelievably cool. It looks so
dangerous.
Good. I know it's dangerous, but I'm like, it's so cool looking. You know, cool. And this is it. Like, we're wrestling, even though it's worked and we know it's predetermined, it's still a combat sport. So, it needs to be a little bit dangerous, and you know that's why they have the big matches. That's why Match in a Cell doesn't work. That's why Hell in a Cell works. Match in a Cell just doesn't work. You know, if you're going to introduce Occam's razor, right? Right. If you introduce a chair or a load of chairs, those chairs better be used, because then it's just a tease. You know, and to use them with a Canadian destroyer is effing rad. Sorry, I can't believe we didn't mention it though. Absolutely.
No, I said shut that out.
I'm actually going to go back after we finish taping and watch that spot again because it was so good.
It was nuts.
It was crazy. I remember just popping like, oh, great. Anyway, this show opened with a very disappointing Taz Lawler match. I thought their match at SummerSlam was a lot better from like, 4 or 5 years ago. I was like, oh, okay. Well, six years
4 or 5 years difference, my mate.
Yeah, 6 years ago, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it was what it was. But this was just basically to get Taz back up in the commentary booth, which is where he'd stay in ECW. We had the first WWE ECW match, and this was weird for me as a kid.
Because neither were ECW.
But also, it was just a WWE match. Like, they had pyro and everything, and I did like Joey Styles' little snide remarks about it. I thought that was fun, but I'm like, this is just silly, lads. Like, it's just a WWE match. But Randy Orton got, like, horrifically taunted and booed by everybody in the arena. They called him stuff which, if said now, would be a hate crime.
Yeah, right?
They'd be cancelled. That's what I'm like, I can't believe these words were just said and broadcast, and now you'd be cancelled, and you know.
Oh, you absolutely would be. Though to be fair, this was pay-per-view, and you can show literally anything on pay-per-view. It's just weird because
but still,
it's on the streaming network now, so like
hard F words and other such things.
Hard ones.
It's like, yikes, you know, big yikes for me. But again, we're 14 years older and we're grown adults, so it's kind of like, okay, but grown adults were saying this at the time. You're like, what's going on? Like, come on.
I didn't understand what their issue was.
Yeah.
You know, what's so funny though is that those people in 2006 were complaining that we weren't getting the language and the nudity and everything that we were getting in the late 90s.
Yeah.
So it's like every 10 years, it's like you guys don't realize it was still pretty ridiculous.
It was pretty,
during that time.
And like, it's because, you know, when you go to a WWE show, there's like 6-8-year-olds there with their families. This show was all like, 18 and above, who wanted all the stuff from the Attitude Era. So yeah, the language is going to be a bit different. You know what I mean? I'm like, if I brought my kid to a WWE show and the guy beside me was using hard Fs, I'll be like, hey man, you know, don't. You know, it's like, can you not? So yeah, I totally understand it. You know, it's a different kind of world. You know, but yeah, like this match was fun. 15 minutes, a bit too long, but it did get over Kurt Angle's new new character. Did get over his new, harder, extreme persona, which was cool.
Man, sometimes when I watch these pay-per-views, though, I fast forward in my head to a WrestleMania 12 years later and go, what happened? I mean, with Kurt Angle, we know what happened, but
yeah,
sometimes,
man,
you know,
like, well, look, Kurt Angle would be gone out of the company by the end of this year, and he'd be over in TNA, probably for, and I would cover this on the 4 Pod Man, probably for the best run of his career. TNA was the best years of his career, and stuff he did there, that's what happened.
Those moonsaults.
Doing moonsaults off cage. Christ on his throne. That is just unbelievable. Like,
unfortunately, we know why he could withstand the pain, which turned out to be an issue.
That's also a thing. But listen, guys, we're going to take our break here for the radio segment. If you're listening, go over to nerdtoknowmedia.com right now. Get the rest of the show. Subscribe on YouTube, Twitch, all that kind of good stuff. If you go onto YouTube, that's where you're going to get a whole bunch of content. So we would urge you to go there. Nerd to Know Media on YouTube. nerdtoknowmedia.com is where you can get everything. Check out all the shows. We'll be back next week here on Phoenix 92.5 FM. Guys, for everyone who's listening to the audio feed or watching the show, we're going to come right back after this. And we're back here on the stream. I'm going to get some ads to play.
Wow, what a long break that was.
What a long break that was.
What a long break.
It's funny because on the actual like audio segment, I actually do put in ads, but I need to get some for the stream. So we'll do that. But
if you guys are sticking with us into overtime, it means you are watching on some other platforms. So seriously, I'll love you if you subscribe.
Yeah, like, look, this is fun because, as I said, you know, we were covering wrestling for about 10, 15 years where it wasn't fun and all we wanted to do was
we weren't laughing this much, trust us.
It was just like, you know, what's it? Brent's like, Dara, everything you go to is just, you know, talk about TNA and that would be your reference point for everything. I'm like, of course it was. That's who I was working for. You know, it's like, it was just what I was watching the whole time. But with WWE, it was just like, ugh. But actually being able to go back and watch this now and enjoy this stuff again is just an absolute privilege. So everyone, thank you for watching the show and for joining us as well. And again, look, if there's something you want us to cover, because this is a show that is kind of dictated by you guys. So, like, if you don't tell us what we're going to watch, Dave's going to send me a message at, like, on a Friday going, what are we going to talk about? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. This maybe. I know next week we're going to talk about the greatest match of all time, apparently. But other than
apparently
that,
we are.
Yeah, apparently that's what's going to happen. But,
I mean, how can we not? It's going to be earth shattering.
It has to. It has to. Like that's my expectation. I don't know about you, man. But,
I fully expect there to be a cataclysm. We're going to end the Younger Dryas. I'm not sure. Something has to happen, because if not, I'm going to be very disappointed. Very disappointed. Do you think it'll be a cinematic match?
Oh, well, it has to be the best match. Has to be the.
I mean, does that?
Well, unless we're looking at it wrong, and the best match of all time is a gimmick match. And
so there's Randy Orton and Edge, and then also there's the greatest match of all time.
Exactly,
and then also there's
like that's the actual gimmick itself, and we just haven't been told what it is.
Oh, okay.
They're just becoming TNA, where they're going to like explain exactly what it is on the screen.
Give a list of 20 rules that no one can understand. Oh my god! They're great. You know, I like King of the Ladder, but good luck explaining it.
I look, King of the Mountain match I will defend, because I love King of the Mountain match.
Yeah.
But the Last Rites match,
dude, penalty boxes are so hard to keep track of.
Yeah, it's
and you have to pin somebody before you can like what?
No, you have to pin someone before you're activated, and it's like.
Yeah.
So what are you talking about? What are you doing? You know, it's overbooked.
Like somebody was playing the video game, was like, okay, now you've got your finisher unlocked.
Now you're good to go. It's like now you have the little icon that you can, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, actually, what we should do, well, if we run out of fun WWE stuff, we might look at crazy TNA stuff eventually. If there's an audience for it, because I'm trying to figure out a way how we won't.
True.
I'm trying to figure out a way how we won't get like watch-alongs and stuff are okay to do, but it's kind of risky with copyright, so we'll just see. We'll just see. Like we might go back. Like, let us know if you want to see some TNA stuff. Let us know in the comments below. But yeah, getting back to this, right? So there was a Balls Mahoney Tanaka match. Not a good match.
Balls didn't look very good.
No, but like Tanaka,
this was the shortest real match on the card.
Yeah.
And,
like
you expected great things out of a guy like Tanaka. And
well, look, the year before we had Mike Awesome's match with Tanaka, which wasn't the best Mike Awesome Miss Tanaka match. That is Heatwave '98, I think. Well, that's the one that we'd always watch as kids. We're like, hey,
Right.
I remember going over to my friend Chris's house, and he'd be like, hey, bro, do you want to watch this? I'm like, what is it? This is crazy. And we'd watch Heatwave '98. It's just, crazy. So that would kind of always be the one that in my circle we'd be like, this is the best Tanaka match with Mike Awesome. And the one they got in One Night Stand 2005 was pretty good, but wasn't the best one. This was very disappointing. And like what I will say is like this pay-per-view, it had some elements in it that should have foretold that it's not going to be fully what we expect it to be.
this was definitely, well, first, rest in peace to Mike Awesome.
Oh, yeah,
Did I
for
get
sure.
it right this week?
You did get it right. You did.
Yeah, okay,
Because you thought you were still alive for some reason.
Yep.
Just like-
I know. Did you have to go?
I have to.
Slide it in.
I have to bring it up. If you hadn't brought it up, I would have
yeah.
forgot. But Dave Stevens,
gonna-
former reviewer of Raw for years, didn't know Mike Awesome was that. Sorry,
But,
sorry, Dave. I had to.
You just had to rub that in.
I
Wow.
did. Yeah, I had to.
Great. I don't even know.
I'm sorry.
I was trying to cover my butt
I'm
for
sorry.
a couple weeks ago. And
I'm
you're like,
sorry.
you know what? I'm going to expose you
I'm gonna
right here, right now.
I'm sorry. Look, everybody makes mistakes. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, nobody's perfect, as Miley Cyrus would sing.
No. That's a whopper tune, though, to be fair. Miley Cyrus, man. I have to say, her Hannah Montana stuff was better than her Miley Cyrus. Just saying.
I mean, there's ups and downs.
There is.
There's ups
Also,
and down periods.
one thing
apparently she is good on that Black Mirror episode. I haven't seen it. She plays that Ashley girl or whatever.
she's really good. That whole episode is quite good. There's also a Hannah Montana Linux version, if people are interested.
I saw you post that.
So that's
and
wild.
The more I learn, I'm gonna...
Yeah, so you might have your form of Debian right there, man. I'm just saying. Anyway, I think that's a topic for a different podcast. There is a tech podcast coming to Nerd to Know Media, so...
cool.
we might
One of the
actually
things I really like about having so many shows on this network is I will find a topic pop up that I would not expect to be covered or talked about. One of it had to do with Pikachu one week, and I was interested. I was like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, I've always wondered about that.
Yeah,
and
sure,
there was a dream version of Platinum, something that you guys wanted to play.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah,
last week or something. So it's just, there's so much fun on this network, guys. So you subscribe to our show, you're subscribing to getting to see a lot of other shows pop up on your feed as well, with some topics that might just tickle your fancy.
Exactly. And that's the thing, if you're watching, if you don't like wrestling, why are you watching this? But if you do,
well, I mean, there is us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's
Well, yeah.
But but like, there's so much covered on this that literally there is stuff from hardcore Japanese horror and Pikachu to conspiracy theories and aliens. So we cover everything on this network. So if you're watching this, or if you just came across this, subscribe. I guarantee it's worth your time. And watch out for some crazy technology stuff which is coming soon. So Hannah Montana Linux is a thing and will be covered at some point, even if I have to do it. But right. So R.I.P. Mike Awesome. And don't worry, Dave, I won't bring it up again.
Jeez, that's how we segue back.
That's how we segue back. So
now I always get to associate it with Miley.
Exactly. Well, there you go.
Great. On a very serious note, I'm just gonna try and bring us in super serial, just so
super serial. So we can go back. So we can go back to the chair shots.
Since we are going back to some hardcore stuff, I do want to give a shout out to Danny Havoc, a phenomenal deathmatch wrestler that passed away this week. I had the chance to meet him a couple times. Very down to earth guy. There's a lot of people. I said this in my post, but there's a lot of people who get into deathmatch wrestling just for exposure, maybe other forms of wrestling. They wouldn't quite fit in, or he's a guy that did it just because that's really the type of wrestling that he loved, and he wanted to elevate it. And it was just kind of a shock, and just wild.
I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that news. I don't think anybody really was. R.I.P. to Danny Havoc. It sucks, he was. I think he was
like 34. So
he's only a couple of years older than us. So it's sad. It's been a while since we had that kind of death in wrestling thing, and when you're watching hardcore wrestling, it's not deathmatch wrestling, and deathmatch wrestling definitely is a choice. Like we saw it with Mox, where he left WWE to go wrestle in glass and barbed wire. It's just a calling for some guys, and this is what they want to do. So, that is really sad. And when it happened, I saw your post, Dave, and I was like, wow, man, that's really sad. So hopefully him and his
you know what
family
made me really happy, though, I got to say, is seeing WWE stars reach out and mention him on Twitter and stuff, because a lot of the guys worked with him.
Well, think about it. Like, a lot of the guys now who are big stars are former deathmatch guys or have been there. And that's the difference. It's not as factionized. That's a word that I've made up. It's not as split where we can't talk about people who we worked with because whatever. Now it's like, well, yeah, we did work with him and he's passed, so I'm gonna and Twitter I don't particularly like. I kind of hate Twitter at some points, but with wrestling, it's great sometimes, particularly with stuff like this where communities can come together, and sadly it is around death usually where communities come together. But look, I hope his family at least are getting the support they need, and he'll always be remembered as one of the greats of deathmatch wrestling. So
one of the absolute first deathmatch show that I attended was CZW's Tournament of Death 7 back in I think it was 2006 or 2007. He would go on to win that event, so he was the first kind of big star that I saw. And these are the days of like Necro Butcher and Moxley and all of them. So and Drake Younger, who was featured yet again as a referee during the Adam Cole Velveteen Dream match.
Oh wow, that was him.
Yes.
Oh, I knew he looked familiar. That's crazy. Like
WWE seems to use him. Triple H must trust him because he seems to get used for matches that Triple H cares about. For those that don't remember, even though he's an NXT referee, he's the one that did Ronda Rousey's debut match. It's just something they trust about him.
But that's it. It's like these deathmatch guys, the ones that stick around, unless they're doing crazy spots, which you can't really do anymore now, they're usually safe enough. To wrestle that kind of style, you can't be if you're a backyard wrestler, that's what I'm talking about. But you can't really be stupid and make a career out of it. Like, if you're going and doing this dangerous stuff, you kind of need to know what you're doing. And that's probably why. That's probably why he's being used, because he's like, look, he's a safe hand. We're going to do some crazy spots here. He knows how to get out of the way and look after himself, so it's fine. But, yeah, it's good, great catch, man. I honestly knew, when I was looking at him, I'm like, he looks really familiar. I don't know why. And now you've said it, so fair play. But look, kind of circling back to this, Masanaka Tanaka has some great body of work. I would recommend it if you like good hardcore matches that aren't WWE of the variety. They're more like straight, basically like strong style with a chair. You're gonna see Tanaka pop up. The chair shots that he took from Mike Awesome are sick, but this Balls Mahoney match, it's not good. It doesn't even register on his match. For me, this was just ridiculous. And Balls Mahoney won, which was even more ridiculous. But
this wasn't a good time for him in his career.
No, it wasn't. It was not. There was the FBI Tajiri match. It was great to see Tajiri, but not a great match. So let's just focus on the two main events. So this was built as kind of like a double main event show. There was the ECW main event, which was an ECW feud versus a WWE feud. This was in one of Mick Foley's books. I don't remember which one. Hardcore Diaries. That was the one that was in. That's when I met Mick Foley. During that time, yeah. It was signing his book in Easton's on O'Connell Street, which is the main street in Dublin. And I got to meet him, and it was, great guy, really nice guy. But yeah, and this whole storyline is mapped out. So Edge and Mick Foley had a phenomenal match at WrestleMania 22. That was the hardcore match, and it really kind of put Edge on the map as, right, we know he's able to do ladders, but is he able to hang with Mick Foley? Oh yeah. Just like Randy Orton. Randy Orton had the same baptism by fire 2 years beforehand. Which
yeah. It was a power bomb onto the tacks.
Onto the tacks. DDT onto the tacks, yeah. And it was he was going for the RKO and he kind of pushed him off.
Threw him, yeah.
And the thing of it is, again, one thing I don't understand about lads that wrestle with thumbtacks: why are you in trunks? Wear jeans and a t-shirt. Don't be stupid.
I can tell you why.
No, I know why, but I'm just, every time I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my god, this is going to end bad. Like, obviously it's it's for impact, but also so tacks don't get stuck in your shirt and your all that kind of stuff. But
it's also because if you want to go out to an indie show for that type of match wearing a shirt, you're going to get plenty of hard F's dropped your way by the crowd.
Oh, really?
You take it off. Oh,
no way, really?
It is not respected.
Oh, right. Well, fair.
They want to see if you're in a match that has barbed wire or thumbtacks. They want to see the blood. They want to see the punishment. Yeah, they want blood.
Wow. Okay. You see what I said? I go back to my statement. It's true. We are no better than the Romans. We are no better than the Romans. Oh wow, that makes way more. Well, it makes sense. I suppose it makes sense there. But why in WWE? Was this? Do you think this was just a backstage thing where Orton was like, "I want to show how tough I
am"? Say that again.
Did you think this was a similar kind of thing where Orton did that to show how tough he was?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Wow. I think it was.
Okay.
Because he was, let's see, 2004 he debuted, so this is 2006. So yeah, this was still his proving time.
Wow.
Really.
Well, guys, I did not know that was the case. So there you go. That's why they don't cover up, because they will be mocked heavily. Wow.
And if you do see somebody that happens to be really, really heavily covered up, they're going to get set on fire.
No way, really?
Because multiple layers that you can layer and get them out. Even though last time I saw that happen, they still got third-degree burns. But still, hey, it's all cool.
That's insane. So yeah, they just wrestle in trunks so you can see how cut up they are at the end of the match.
Yep. Pants are allowed.
Pants are
allowed. Really it's the canvas of the back that people want to see.
Right, you want to see cut up and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so you can't wear a shirt, but you can wear pants.
Absolutely.
Well, okay, yeah. Still, I don't know why he wore trunks still, because it's like that cannot be.
You're right, Derek. He shouldn't even worn trunks. He should have just taken that.
Take that off. Just go for it. Oh no! But
should have taken that spot full on.
But like in this match with Edge, like Edge was wearing pants, so it kind of was less. And I think he was wearing like a t-shirt and a kind of vest. So that would be looked down upon. Is that correct?
But he went through a table of fire, did he not?
Oh, yeah, that's very true. There we go. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. So
for sometimes I know what I'm talking about, guys.
Yeah, makes sense. I did not. My mind is blown. Dave, this is the second time you've done this on a show that I've done where you've totally blown my mind that I can't even recover. Now, to be fair, the time travel one, I was just finished at that whole point. We had to end the show because I just couldn't comprehend it. But yeah, so there you go. So yeah, like this was set up with Mick Foley and Edge, and then when Edge won the match, he was given the hardcore belt, and Mick Foley was like, "Look, you're the new hardcore guy." And this was obviously to set up a big kind of heel turn for Mick Foley, which was weird because it's very hard to actually get Mick Foley booed and this kind of work because he was doing everything. It was kind of going back to the ECW Kane Dewey anti-hardcore wrestling, and it's set up a feud now with Tommy Dreamer, Terry Funk, Beulah. Beulah came back to be the foil for Lita.
No.
So this match was actually really good. Now, it was better and worse than the year before match with the Dudleys and Sandman. Didn't have that true feel to it, but it was a better match.
It definitely was. Tommy Dreamer's ability to inflict pile drivers on women is unparalleled in the wrestling industry.
Well, yeah, it's something to be known for, right? I suppose.
Something to be known for. Yeah. I mean, if you live in the house of hardcore, you're gonna be hardcore. So it just, it's, I don't know, would we see that nowadays? Maybe, maybe not.
No, we would not. Like, and case in point, with Lucha Underground, this is what took down Lucha Underground, the violence on women, intergender matches. That's what took it down.
When I was thinking of this type of thing during In Your House, because I love Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano, but every time I think of Candice, I just think of the fact that she built her career as an intergender wrestler. Yeah. She built her career showing that she could wrestle against the men, and it's a side of her that I don't think we'll ever really see in the WWE.
Look, and there was a thing on the Observer. Brian Everett was talking about it, and it's true. Like, people don't like seeing women being beaten up by men.
No,
they just don't.
Wow.
Well,
I mean, no. Oh, wow, this pain. No, but unscripted.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, like, it's a harder sell. For example, if you're watching, like,
It's easier to sell a chair shot to the head unprotected than it is
like
Mae Young going through a table with a power bomb, but I still love both of them.
Well, Mae Young couldn't really kill Mae Young, like, you know, like
So
realistic.
that's the acceptable limit.
Couldn't really, like, you know, she just was. But I mean, for your average, and even still, the way that was sold, it was like, this is the most dastardly thing done ever. But what I mean is, an example that Figure 4 uses is when Austin was beating up the Hardy Boys, and then absolutely decimated Lita with a chair and a stunner and everything, and the ratings just went through the floor. It's like, there's a line, right, where, yeah, competitive matches with women, totally fine, intergender matches are fine, but when it's absolutely brutalizing, it's like somewhere that triggers that innate response where you're like, yeah, no, this isn't, you know,
it's just uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable, exactly, and that's the difference, you know.
I think there's a huge difference between a spot and a beatdown.
Exactly, and that's what that match in Lucha Underground was. It was a beatdown for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So it was just like, yeah, no, this isn't it. And I think like the way they used it here, when Tommy Dreamer does it, it's like it's a spot. It's not like a focal point of the match. And
right, that's
yeah. And Lita kind of, she got what she deserved as such from Beulah. Beulah was the one who was the arbiter of justice, not Tommy, and that was kind of a cool way that they always did it. So whenever they set that up, it was never gratuitous. It was always kind of inside the storyline, you know the way.
Speaking of storyline, inside of, what a change it was for Edge and Lita than a year previous at ECW One Night Stand.
Yes, very much so. But also Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was in the ECW camp the year before as well. Yeah,
well, but he was in the anti-ECW camp, but Edge and Lita were in the they were just in the fans hate you because of what's going on with Matt Hardy camp.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that was you want to talk about some chants.
Oh yeah.
And the complete, this is what I love about wrestling is, as a fan base, you can completely switch and turn around in the course of a year to beloved, and we completely forgive you.
Wrestling fans are very fickle, but also very forgiving, if nothing else. So that's just the kind of way. But like, this match, I really enjoyed. For me, it was like the highlight of the show until it wasn't. And if you want to see any match on this was one that you'll really enjoy, like bell to bell. As an ECW original thing, you know, it would have fit, even with who was in it, it still would have fit in ECW, right? That's what I mean. And then we have what wouldn't have fit in ECW at all, but still goes down as one of the best ECW matches or one of the most important ECW matches, and I use that in quotation marks, of WWE canon. It was,
forget that. It's one of the most important wrestling matches.
For sure. Oh, yeah, for sure. But I mean, like, with that ECW proviso, which...
Right, the WWE ECW timeline.
Yeah. But, like, it's still very important for ECW as such, because of what it meant and what it did and what it set up. Now, briefly, we'll touch on it. We'll probably go into it more if we ever look at December to Dismember, and what happened with the breakdown. But all things going well, this would have launched ECW into a new wave. It would have pretty much become NXT with Punk at its focal point, with RVD leading that charge. But what happened, and that all fell apart. And then it was an uphill battle for Paul Heyman from the get-go at that point. Because remember, like, this wasn't supposed to happen. This was supposed to be a flash in the pan kind of thing, and that was it. But you know, the One Night Stand was a massive success. The Rise and Fall of ECW was a runaway success. I still think it's the most sold WWE DVD of all time.
I know it was for a long time.
And that was it, you know. So Paul Heyman at this point was holding all the cards and had everything going his way. And it was undone by one police checkpoint, basically. And some bad decisions by RVD. So just bear that in mind as we're going forward.
But you know what? I think what you're saying is important in the sense that forget about what happened after this moment.
Try to.
We're going to talk about this moment.
Yeah. Like, I'm setting it up in such a way that
Yeah.
Everything that happened was completely opposite to what was meant to happen, basically. And at this point, this was Paul Heyman's probably most success until Brock Lesnar and his career after wrestling, and now running Raw. But I mean, like,
this was a bigger success than anything he did in ECW. In the original ECW.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. This was.
They had more buys than any, right?
They had more buys, more attention, and more support. There was actually money behind this as well.
Yes.
And this was a real
the venue.
chance.
The venue was a perfect choice, going to the Hammerstein Ballroom.
Everything.
And tapping into, we talked about, the fans and not having little kids there, really, for the most part. And that's because the people who bought tickets, because they were priced fairly high,
$1,000.
People.
They were $1,000. I did not know that. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, $1,000 for a wrestling show? Get effed.
So you want to know why the fans were really invested emotionally?
No way. Like, I'm sorry, I wouldn't pay $1,000 for anything. No, it's just no. But fair play for anyone who did. You got your money's worth. But yeah, like, that was. I couldn't believe that. I only found that out recently from the Solo Monster. I was like, what? Tell you paid $1,000?
Yeah. That's why whenever you see those people who sit at the front of every WWE show, when
where's the money coming from? What did they do?
That's what I wonder. Like, how can you afford to travel this much? And like, what do you do?
Exactly. It's like, is it drugs? Are you? Because is
that why you're traveling so much?
That's what it has to be. Person who shows up at every wrestling event, because I don't know what you do. It's like, there's no way.
No job.
That's all said in jest. Obviously, they're not drug dealers. They might be.
No, they probably are. Though, but
I don't know.
So,
but
it's possible.
Anything's possible. But it's like, seriously, anyone who's sewn up at that, let me know what you do or don't, because it could be something criminal. But fair play.
Could you imagine, like, and then you want to multiply that by magnitudes for like to sit front row at a WrestleMania? Like, yes, would that be a once in a lifetime experience? But would it be worth it? I don't know.
Like,
maybe.
I don't know. Like, okay, look,
I don't know.
This being at this show would be one of the kind of things where it's like, oh yeah, look, it's probably worth it, for what it was, particularly based on last year, the year before. Right. It probably would have been like, well, look, this is probably not going to happen again, and it didn't. This was the last time we'd get this presentation of ECW on a pay-per-view. I know they did a couple of their early shows on Sci-Fi from Hammerstein Ballroom, and to be fair, they probably should have just kept that. They should go back if they can. I don't know if it's still there or not. I think it is, but they should actually be able to go back and do a show. I think when they moved.
No, I've been paying attention to what people have been doing this week. Couldn't tell you if it's still there, Derek.
I don't know. You're closer to it than I am. That's the truth of it. But yeah, like, based on this week, it might not be there anymore. It's just, But if it is still there,
this is Derek's Mike Oslo moment.
I don't know, guys. Look, I live in Ireland. All right, we don't know. We're just a bunch of leprechauns. Okay, we just look over and go, America's crazy and scary. We're staying away. And I should be there now, like, in like 12 days, which is unbelievable. But yeah, look, if it is still there, they should use it again. That's my point. Where they should be actually, because this had a different feel than everything else. This was like one of those amazing shows that felt completely. And even in WWE games, they bring it back. In that what's the real, like, low rent one that you end up wrestling for? BCW or something? Yeah, I think it is BCW, and like you wrestle in the Hammerstein Ballroom and they make a big thing out of it.
Are you talking about currently?
No, in the actual games itself. In 2K,
in the games. I think it is BCW.
Yeah, in 2K19 you unlock Hammerstein Ballroom because you wrestle there and you make a big song and dance out of it. So obviously it's still something that is ingrained in WWE lore. And I don't know why they've never gone back to it. Recently, anyway.
Well, the good news is good news, everybody. It's still open.
It's still open. It's not burnt down.
Still open.
Thankfully.
No.
Good.
I mean, it's not open currently, but it's open.
It's still there. It's still standing.
It exists. It's still used,
so
but not
stuff.
current. It just.
But yeah, look, WWE, go back to it. When this lockdown.
Really, what's important to know about it is that it's where 30 Seconds to Mars played their 300th sold-out world record show on December 7th, 2011. So
that's crazy. That's crazy.
But look, I'm giving a shout out to my favorite band, but at this point, I might as well.
Actually, you know what's funny? 30 Seconds to Mars has the bass player of Angel Airwaves, the former bass player.
Oh,
of Angel
their new bass player that
No.
they got like last year.
No, they're all
Tomo.
Matt Watcher was in 30 Seconds to Mars, and then he was in Angel Airwaves. I actually met Matt. I met
That's like first album, wasn't
it? Second album.
Second. It's a great album.
I met Matt Watcher actually outside a show in Manchester. Outside the Angels Era show, because nobody knew who he was, because they were all there for Tom DeLonge, and I'm like, oh hey Matt, and he's like, what? Hey, and I was just, and everybody was like, who's that? I'm like, it's the bass player of the band, and they're all like, what? I'm like, yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, that's an interesting era for that group.
Definitely.
Man. What year was that?
That was 2000. Actually, that was this era. This is 2006.
I was gonna say, yeah, that would fit. Yeah, that was. We were still getting screamo out of Jared Leto back then.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, so look, I want this. I would want this every year, and it's basically what we went back to in your house, where it was a different feel. It presented a different feel, and actually made the show feel important. So the minute you saw, the pan coming in, you're like, okay, we're here. This is not WWE, and that was important to set up this match. They were like, this is not WWE. This is, to Paul Heyman, it's ECW, right? That was a promo kind of thing. And
yeah, you're only talking about 3,000 or so people.
Exactly.
So
it was a really intimate feel, and it was, perfect.
What I love about those small venues is it allows the crowd to chant together.
Exactly.
It's one of the things about Madison Square Garden. It only sits 20,000. Like when you're in, let's say WrestleMania had been in Tampa Bay this year, we're talking about an 85,000 person crowd. You don't get the same kind of fluidity. Your emotion's not as connected to each other.
Yeah, like that's one thing that one of my favorite wrestling shows I ever went to was in the National Stadium in Ireland. It was a TNA show, 1,000 people, but it was packed out, and it was AJ Styles versus Kurt Angle in the main event. They went for an hour. It was amazing. Oh, wow. It was unbelievable. It was probably the best match I've ever seen. Yeah, and as you said, it was because the crowd was so into it, and it was so intimate, and it was just like, this is amazing. So yeah, look, that's what they went for, and this is what they really wanted to kind of replicate, and this is what John Cena walked into, and this is John Cena. We hate John Cena because he has transcended from being Word Life John Cena, which I actually really enjoy, to this force down our throat, everything that we don't like kind of character. And he
became a call. He was a creator wrestler.
He became a creator wrestler. He really did. And this was full on hatred. I've never seen hatred at this level for anyone. And he takes off his shirt and it gets thrown back, and he tries again, and someone spits on it and throws it back, and you're like, wow, this is serious. And when he walked out, no one cheered, everyone booed, but he kind of went through it. And I think that was like the most face thing he could have done, where he's like, I don't care, I'm just going to go and do it anyway. So
I love the head down, just walking straight to the ring, not slapping any hands. It was as heel Cena as we get to see Cena.
It was heel Cena, but not really. It was more kind of like anti-heel, where he's like, look, I'm just going to go in and kick ass.
Yeah, it was, I know this isn't my homeland, but I'm still here to try and defend my honor, or whatever.
Exactly. And it's never been replicated. I think the closest we got to it was with CM Punk and Money in the Bank.
Yeah, that's the next one that stands out. And they both happen to be results of the Money in the Bank ladder match, which we covered. And I know we covered this match in talking about that, but it deserves to be reiterated for the timestamp that it was for wrestling.
Like the match itself was a very, very good RVD match. Like Cena, one thing I liked about Cena and do like about Cena is that he always works. One thing I like and dislike about Cena is that he works to the person who's in the ring with. So we can have some great matches and then just have some absolute terrible matches. With RVD was in the prime of his career at this point. It would peter out in the next 3 or 4 years, which sadly was in TNA. But this was his pinnacle. And it was a great match. It wasn't the most violent match in the world. It didn't have to be. It had some violent spots. But it served its job, For the first 10 minutes, it was a very, very competitive match. Then we start getting schlock. basically. And the ending, obviously, it was John Cena at the table. Some guy comes in wearing a mask, like a biker's helmet, spears John Cena. It's Edge, which nobody expected.
No, especially not because he already wrestled earlier in the night.
Still don't understand why. I don't know why that was.
I have no idea.
Like that, it still makes no sense why it happened. Nick Patrick came out to the ring, was there as well, which was weird to see Nick Patrick. And yeah, Spears RVD rolls back in. Paul Heyman runs out 1, 2, 3, counts the match. RVD is
It's legit.
Your WWE and ECW champion, as you can see in Dave's background image there. What I like about it is it's like, you know, you have the Sandman in the back and just incredible, and then his big mallet head is like, just standing there like Big Show, like.
There's some RVD for you.
There you go. But the thing about the Big Show is it's like he had only just defected to ECW like the night before. So it's like, yeah, we're kicking off this whole new event and it's going to be proper hardcore ECW. Big Show. Okay. Like, this is already has some bad elements in it.
You know what, though? It honestly revived the careers of Big Show and Mark Henry.
It did.
For me.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly.
Well, Mark Henry would go and have his Hall of Pain pretty much a couple of years after this.
Right.
So
but I think if he had not been sent to the ECW and gotten some screen time, he might have never been seen for having a new character like that. One of the things I absolutely loved during this match, and we were talking about with the whole fan interaction thing, is the way the fans were so on Cena, and they were doing, as you would get with Punk later, they were doing the "You Can't Wrestle" chants, and he would respond to that by doing a wrestling move.
Yes.
And then the fans will respond to that with a "You still suck."
Yeah, like there's good actually there is a good exchange in that where there's the "You Can't Wrestle" and then there's a wrestling exchange and everyone just stops and goes, "You still suck." And it's like, this is brilliant. It's actually fantastic. Like, it's really, really good. And it's one thing that, like, sadly the next 2 or 3 years there would be none of that because it was just a Cena what's the word I'm looking for?
Promo vehicle?
Or even bulldozing, because there was nobody to be able to have that level until Punk came along, where he's like, all right, you know, we're gonna and then you got some of the best matches of both their career, where Punk and Cena would have absolute barn burners. So it's just one of
Pile Driver on Monday Night Raw.
A Pile Driver, which is, I think they were the only two guys who were able to do that at that point.
I'm sure they both still got fined for it.
Oh yeah, most definitely. But they were still like, we're just going to do what we want, and they're able to. And fair play, like
Punk knew he was gone shortly. So
but even still, we've seen this again this year with Cena's commitment to the Firefly Funhouse match, where he was the one running a lot of these spots and running a lot of these elements. And it's a shame, you know. It's like, as somebody who was very hard on John Cena, it's like at the time, what else could they have done but what they were given? There wasn't really that. Like, AJ Styles should have been in WWE years ago. But he wasn't. He was in TNA. All the good talent that WWE could have used, who are using now, come from TNA or the Indies. And they were just too young or inexperienced or just didn't want to leave. So it wasn't
and
really
the WWE straight up refused to use them. I mean, you were blacklisted. If you worked for Ring of Honor, you worked for TNA, you were essentially blacklisted.
Exactly.
For working in the WWE for a couple of years. It was very, very bizarre.
Yeah, it wasn't until Triple H took over and started changing this.
Yep.
Where it was like, and I do think if, you know, in a turn of timeline, if that wasn't the case, I think we would have seen a very different John Cena. Someone who wouldn't have been "You Can't Wrestle," but more, look who you have wrestled. And it's the black mark on his career that time period, that 3 to 5 years, it did nothing for nobody. It just kind of ticked over, and it's a very forgettable time period.
Did a lot for his bank account.
Well, fair enough. Not gonna say no to that, right? No one's gonna be stupid enough to do that. But like, with the exception of Shawn Michaels' matches, that great match he had on Raw with Shawn Michaels, and a few matches here and there, it was very, very, very poor in hindsight. But then he redeemed himself by, you know, that great US title run and stuff like that. But it's just what could have been, right? And then what was when TNA eventually, well, when the main card of WWE eventually just became TNA. So it was what it was. But Dave,
did you know that the Hammerstein Ballroom is actually owned by a church?
No way.
Yeah, that's serious.
That's funny.
Yeah, it looks like it was bought that way in the 70s, and then they renovated it, but they're the ones who run everything.
Well, there you go.
Sun Myung Moon's Unification Church is the current owner.
Only in America. That's it. That's why you guys are the best country in the world. Stuff like that just doesn't exist anywhere else but in America. It's great. Anyway, look, before we finish up this week, we've done an hour of overtime. I think this is the longest show we've done on the Rewind ever. So thanks for everyone sticking with us. If there's anything you want to comment on, let us know in the comments below. You can email us, nerdtoknowmedia@gmail.com. That's just the general email for all the shows. Twitter. I'm on Twitter as well, @DarWV. Dave's on Twitter, Dave Stevens, right?
Yep, Dave Stevens. Give me some follows on Twitter.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like to pretend that it's the old days and I can just go down there and troll, and then I remember, I can't. I need to delete some tweets. So it's a fun time to follow me.
Exactly. Cancel culture is the thing. It's kind of scary.
Every day I go on, am I shadow banned yet? No, still good? Okay, let's go. Let's roll.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what's going on? Oh, Twitter. It's so funny and so scary at the same time. But look, well, if you follow my Twitter, usually I'm talking about something tech related or shouting abuse at our unelected Prime Minister, who's still there despite it being 4 months since the election, so okay. Or I'm talking about wrestling. So they're the three things that I talk about on Twitter more than anything else. So give me a follow if you want. And Nerd to Know Media, all shows all the time. We don't know what we're going to talk about this week or next week on the Rewind, so we will let us know.
Even though I think we've actually said it earlier in the show, and I think we've both forgotten.
Yeah, we don't know.
Oh, we have to talk about the greatest match ever.
That's the only thing we have. That's going to be our lead-in next week. But
I mean, it's the greatest match ever. It deserves a full hour
already. Several hours, maybe. Yeah.
Wait, I'm gonna have to cancel work.
Oh, it's what's going to happen. But that we're going to cover that. We might cover out something else. We'll throw it up on Twitter or Facebook. Go over to the Facebook page, guys. Dave and myself are quite active on that. And I'm also posting stuff from the vault on our YouTube channel. So that's basically old clips from the desk, where, you know, actually there's a few from Dave as well that's going up. I'm going to go through them and popping them all up there. So we have something up on the channel at least once a day. So no excuse not to join, and it's all free as well. So guys, thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back next week, same time, here on nerdtoknowmedia.com, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, all that good stuff. And we'll talk to you next week here on the Wrestling Rewind.
Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.